I know many of you watch our data closely, and when something changes, it can prompt questions. As CDC director, a key principle is leading with transparency.
Except, of course, when it comes to releasing COVID data. As the New York Times reported over the weekend, shockingly, the CDC has withheld critical data on boosters, hospitalizations, and, until recently, wastewater analyses. Among the most egregious omissions from the CDC data, though, is that about vaccine and booster effectiveness in younger adults. But what's truly infuriating is their lame excuse for all the secrecy, saying the agency has been reluctant to make those figures public, one official said, because they might be misinterpreted as the vaccines being ineffective. In other words, they didn't want the unwashed masses reaching conclusions that weren't approved by the Medicrats and, of course, the left. Joining me now, Dr. Scott Jensen, who's been sounding the alarm on so much of this, physician and Minnesota gubernatorial candidate, and Dr. Hooman Hamadi, board-certified MD, PhD research scientist. Dr. Jensen, let's start with you. You and I have known this entire time that the CDC has been hiding the ball, whether we were talking masks or now on this issue of the boosters. And you're one of the first people to point out the falsehoods about COVID mortality numbers. So at this point, why is anyone going to trust the CDC?
You're right, Laura. The bottom line is Americans really need to wake up. They've been fed a limited amount of information, and this is as much an intrusion of their rights as if they were inappropriately incarcerated.
Yeah, so Dr. Hamadi, this is something for 2 years that it's upended the lives of so many Americans. Obviously, tragically, so many Americans have lost their lives. No one's ever discounting the tragedy of that. But to justify whether it's time in isolation or quarantine or social distancing or third and fourth boosters, do we not need actual transparency and real data? Real data.
Laura, we need absolute transparency. This is one branch of the federal government that is not up to be politicized. We can politicize other things. I'm fine with that. We can't politicize public health. It should be off limits to anything political, anything that's influenced by unions, by political parties, by corporations, by any outside factors. This needs to be the one federal agency that is completely and totally guided by science, by fact, and by nothing else. And 2 years into the pandemic, like you said, we have so much scientific fact. We have reams and reams of medical data, not from hundreds or thousands of people worldwide, billions of people worldwide. In fact, the entire world population. There's never in history been any more medical information than this. And for the CDC to curate the data and tell us that certain data that they have are not ready for prime time is as outlandish as Eric Garcetti, the LA mayor, when he said he was holding his breath for that photograph at the football game. It's unbelievable. It's they owe it to us to be transparent, and they have to start doing that now.
Here's more from that Times article on the CDC secrecy. Without the booster data for 18 to 49-year-olds, the outside experts whom federal health agencies look to for advice had to rely on numbers from Israel to make their recommendations on shots. So, Dr. Jensen, Israel's gone through its own transformation on the way they're dealing with COVID as well. But is anyone ever going to be held accountable for, again, the lack of transparency and outright lies about what really has gone on here?
I think they are, Laura. I think the CDC is running for cover. I think it's embarrassing that in America, we have to look to Israel for high-quality data. I saw that in the New York Times article, even Dr. Paul Offit, who arguably is a pro-public health kind of person, he's, I think, embarrassed by what the CDC has done. And Laura, I think this is why you're seeing Americans rise up all across the nation, whether they're running for school board, city council. I certainly hadn't been planned on running for governor, but I'm doing this because I am fed up. I think Americans deserve to know when 18 to 49-year-olds aren't benefiting from vaccines. Why aren't we drawing antibody tests on these people? Why isn't the CDC saying, do vitamin C, D, zinc, and get your antibodies checked? We'll help you have the information necessary so you can make a good decision.
Well, we've been talking about this T-Detect test, Dr. Hamadi, for, I don't know, a year and a half and it tests your T cell immunity to COVID. And they're talking, well, antibodies wane. Yes, but memory B and then T cells are the last line of killer cells that would go after the virus. That is testable. It's an emergency use authorization, but so is the vaccine, Dr. Hamadi. And it's like that doesn't even exist. Now they're like, well, natural immunity actually might be relevant. I mean, this is a talk show host helped figure this out with some smart people like you guys.
That is true. And the problem is that, again, they're sticking to their original narrative from back in March of 2020. And we're 2 years into this now. We have so much more data. And for some reason, there's so many elements within the administration altogether that are just so resistant to changing based on changing data. They feel like they're admitting like they don't know what they're doing. And it's fine to say, you know what, medical science is changing. We have new data. Let's shift how we do things. But they've been resistant. And in so doing, they've been harmful as well. And they need to really change how they do things and be more transparent and actually listen to science and listen to the people.
Well, I think we also have to follow the money. Who gets grants from whom? And that's a conversation for another day. Doctors, thank you.